Brought now Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts. How are you, sir?
What's going on? I'm waking up. I don't know how you guys do this morning radio stuff. I'm not a morning person. This is, hell, it's almost 9 o'clock and it's still a struggle for me. I don't know how you guys do this starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't get going until about noon.
Well, it's all day deal for me. Plus, my favorite thing is having a late night Indiana game, like the night before last. That I get home and I am in Bloomington, and I crawl in bed at 1:30. That's the fun ones, or better yet, the road games, the 9 o'clock road games that I go to, and then get to do the show. It's always fun, but you know what? It could be digging ditches, right?
That's what I say. Yeah, I just in the morning, like when we're getting the kids ready and shuffle them out of the door, like I just give my wife a series of grunts and looks, because I'm not a morning person. I don't have much to say until about noon. I don't transform into anything coherent until about lunchtime.
Oh, I haven't either. Don't you notice? Most people do. How have you been, man?
Been good. Things are kind of, with the Super Bowl last Sunday, obviously every NFL team here now is officially in the offseason. So it's just kind of crazy the way the NFL schedule and the offseason works. I mean, just when you think it's going to go away, now that we've had the championship game, you think things are going to die down. Nope. I mean, the NFL combine's in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after that, you've got NFL free agency. And then about a month after that, you've got the draft. So between now and the end of April, this is the major acquisition time for, player movement in the NFL. So it's going to be a really interesting time around the league. Obviously, it's going to be an interesting time with the Colts because they've got a lot of, questions and, some things that are swirling around a little bit. And I think with fans, they look at this period of time with just as much interest, looking at the business side of the NFL, just as almost as much as they do with, playing games in the months of, October, November, and December. So it's going to get really, really busy, and the NFL it's the beast that never sleeps and never completely goes away. And that's why it's such a popular sport.
Well, I was going to say, Matt, one of the things, Matt, that always catches me by, I don't know why it catches me by surprise. I've been doing this a long time now, but, we always say college football and college basketball never sleep because you're constantly recruiting. There's always something going on that front. But in terms of actual events, you have the NFL, basically from August through mid-February, and then you have everything that you just mentioned, the combine, pro days, you have the NFL draft, free agency, then you get, back to summer camp. It's truly the NFL markets itself better than any other league in professional sports, at least in this country. And it's just so well placed throughout the course of the year. It's just, you never really truly realize how it's a constant in constant motion until you're writing about it every single day.
No, that's it. And it, to be honest with you, it's tough to be strategic about when to take time off because like you said, there's always something kind of grabbing you back and pulling your attention back to the NFL and player movement and free agency. And obviously the draft. I mean, the draft is the lifeblood of the NFL. There's just always something pulling you back to focus on your favorite team, or if you're a fantasy football player or whatever, you're constantly paying attention to the movement and the news and the news cycle around the National Football League. And, I think this time of year, college basketball and the NBA, those things, start to creep back up and take over. And I think they do to a degree, but they never really dominate because, hell, even during March Madness, right, that first weekend of the NCAA tournament, which is so, sacred. We all love that tournament, right? I mean, most of us, take Friday off and watch basketball and we fill out our brackets. But even during those games, right, you're watching the broadcasts and you've got the crawl on the bottom of the screen and it's always breaking news. NFL free agency. You've got, Jason Pierre-Paul signs with the Buccaneers. Tom Brady's going here, or, Aaron Rodgers is going there now. So even when you're watching basketball in March, the NFL is literally at the bottom of the screen, diverting your attention away from the game. So it's just a fascinating league. And to your point, they've been very strategic about placing things, about a month apart. And every month of the calendar year, you've got something, right? You've got the playoffs in January, combine in March, Super Bowl February, draft in April, in May and June, you've got OTAs, off-season workout program, mini camps. Really, the only closest, the closest thing to the dead time in the NFL is between mid-June and the end of July. But hell, even that's only, basically 5 weeks. And then we all know it's coming after that. It's just, it's the ramp up for training camp and the preseason. And then it's just football overload, 24/7. So it's a very interesting thing that the NFL has done. And I know other leagues have tried to replicate it, but, football is football. And with the rise of fantasy football and just the popularity of the league and the fact that it's an event, right? It's only once a week, whereas basketball, you play a couple games. And, these NFL football games, they only play 17 of them. And, that's the equivalent of 10, 11 Major League Baseball games. That's the equivalent of 4 or 5 basketball games if you're comparing it to an NBA schedule. So that's why it's so popular, is because the games mean so much, and you have a week to hype them up between Sundays.
And one thing I wanted to hit on too about the in regards to the Super Bowl is we looked at Matt Stafford and Joe Burrow, and I think when you look at that matchup, it's probably the matchup of two of the most likable quarterbacks, at least right now, that we've seen, maybe since Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. I'd have to go back and look at some of those particular matchups, but there's always guys rooting against Tom Brady or, whoever might be on the other side, like Cam Newton, had his haters. But I want to ask an interesting question of this, because Joe Burrow has been already compared to a guy like Tom Brady, not in maybe the fact that he's going to be the greatest of all time, but in the fact that, he was a guy that early in his Ohio State career, it was like, maybe this guy can get to the NFL, but maybe not. And he's already taken a Bengals franchise that had struggled for decades to win playoff games to the Super Bowl in his second season. But I wonder how quickly he's beloved right now and seems to have the nation, wrapped around his finger. But I wonder how quickly that's going to change into maybe that kind of hatred we see from Tom Brady, because I think Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are here to stay, and they'll be a regular team in the playoffs and maybe the Super Bowl. So it's just going to be interesting to me. I mean, do you kind of get that same vibe the way he when you're a constant winner in the NFL, typically those things tend to turn quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I hadn't thought about that, because like you said, Joe Burrow is, so fresh. And the thing about the NFL in the past 24 months, you look at what the league has lost in terms of faces of the game, right? You've lost Roethlisberger, you've lost Brady, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, and then you've replaced them with guys like Patrick Mahomes, and who's already won a Super Bowl, and Herbert, and all the guys in the AFC. You've got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, who's already won an MVP, and the league has just replaced him. So who's going to take over the role of the hated Ben Roethlisberger? And you don't get to that point, to your point, Dustin, unless you win. But I do think, and I don't know, I don't know if this makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but I don't know if Joe Burrow will get to the point where he's despised, even if the Bengals, let's say, go on to win a couple of Super Bowls and they're in the AFC Championship game every year, which I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, what New England did, whatever the number was, they played in 9 consecutive AFC Championship games, and they played in 10 Super Bowls, 9 Super Bowls, won 6 of them with Brady. I just don't think you're going to see that level of success ever again. I just think it was that special. And quite frankly, too, the AFC East was so god terrible that they took advantage of that and won division championship after division championship, clinched home field advantage all the way throughout, because they just took advantage of a terrible division that couldn't figure it out. The AFC
if the
North
tuck rule was
like
not
that.
so stupid, this could all change too. That fumble had been called a fumble like it should have been. That first Super Bowl never happens.
So I don't think you're going to see that level of success with the Bengals. I agree with you. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're going to be a really good team for a long time, but I don't think you're going to see them consistently in the AFC Championship game, to the point where what the Patriots were doing. Plus Tom Brady is just like, he's got it all. And people hate that, right? He's a good-looking guy. He's
Right.
got, the best coach in the game on his sideline. Now he won despite that, but you get what I'm saying. He's got the supermodel wife. He's just got this charmed life that people just really kind of got turned off of. And plus, he was in the Super Bowl every year, and people just got tired of that and what the Patriots meant to the Colts' success and blocking their road to championship. So plus Joe Burrow, and I know it's fresh, right? He's only in year 2, but I mean, hell, in the Super Bowl, he's going up to guys in the Rams defense and shaking their hands and introducing himself, and he's just being very respectful, and he's treating the game with a lot of reverence, and he's just doing the right things and saying the right things and being, the franchise face of the Bengals right now. And hell, that
how
could
refreshing
change.
is that? How refreshing is that?
But those things tend to disappear, and the more success you have, it's human nature to get a little bit more arrogant and cocky. I don't think that'll happen with Joe Burrow, because I think he's a very grounded and he's just a really good person. But I think that's why we hated Brady, because of the evil empire with the Patriots, their long-term success, their sustainability. I don't think you're going to have that with the Bengals. But I tell you what, Joe Burrow is that good to take the Bengals where they want to go, despite not having all the pieces on their team around him in place. I mean, that offensive line was terrible.
Awful.
He got sacked 9 times in a playoff game and still won. That's how good he is. So he's a really likable guy, in my opinion, a guy that's easily you're able to root for him, but winning and just being there all the time tends to kind of change fan feelings, to your point, Dustin.